Tēnā koutou. Hello, everybody. I'm Richard Anderson, Head of Agribusiness here at Westpac, and thanks for joining us today for Westpac Smart Seminar on driving agricultural productivity through innovation. Westpac Smarts is a year-round speaker series aimed at helping set Kiwi businesses up for success. A big welcome back to everyone who regularly tunes in, and a warm welcome if you're tuning in for the first time. At Westpac, we believe it's greater people who make for greater business. We've designed this series to share expert knowledge and insights from our own people and from industry experts to help you in your business journey. So today we're talking about how innovation, both current and future, can drive productivity across New Zealand's food and fibre sector. We're going to address the rise of smart farming, from artificial intelligence to the Internet of Things to robotics and data analytics, why productivity and resilience are the new frontiers for growth, and what it takes to attract investment and scale innovation in agriculture. I've been in my role as Head of Agribusiness for Westpac for 4 months, and in that time I've been around the length and breadth of the country. I've seen innovation in action on dairy farms, from robotic milking to collars and genetics. And in the horticultural sector, precision irrigation with capacity for precision fertigation, as well as new varietals. And on sheep and beef, we've seen genetic improvements and the use of collars. And for all types of farming, the use of sophisticated accounting software. I am by no means an expert, but luckily I'm joined today by a couple of experts who are going to weigh into this topic and discuss together how agribusinesses can drive productivity through innovation. The session today is planned for 45 minutes. Kicking off with a discussion, I'll be leading with our panellists and allowing 15 minutes for your questions at the end. The Q&A will be running live on the right of your screen, so register your questions as they come to mind, and please indicate the panelist you'd like directed to. If you like a question raised by someone else, click on it to increase its rating, and we'll work our way through the highest rated questions first. I'm going to ask our panelists to give a brief introduction to themselves and share their background, starting with you, Mike.
A very good afternoon to you all. I'm Mike Manning, Chief Science Officer with Ravensdown. I've fortunately had the opportunity to be directly involved in research and innovation for over 30 years. And if there's one lesson in those 30 years that I've learned in terms of your investment in research and innovation, is a pragmatism and a focus that perhaps won't surprise anybody, but that is an important approach to how you spend and invest your money. Thanks, Richard.
Andrew?
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for coming along this afternoon. My name's Andrew Waters. I wear a number of hats, but a couple of them is day-to-day proud owner of a dairy farm based in the Wairarapa, around that 500 cow mark. In my day job, I'm Chief Executive of MyFarm Investments. We've built up a portfolio of rural-based assets, particularly in horticulture, forestry, and what you call rural commercial. So have that broad sector experience from the MyFarm activities.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Mike. To start, I'd like to get your views on what we're trying to solve for. For many years, we've heard that New Zealand has a productivity issue. And in relation to agriculture, looking back at the past 5 years, we've seen relatively kind of flat growth on capital productivity across sectors. Labour productivity has tended to improve. We in conjunction with MyFarm released a report back in June 2025, which I'd encourage you to go to the Westpac website for. But gents, I'd like to get your views of New Zealand's kind of productivity issues in relation to agriculture across the various sectors. Andrew, can I start with you?
Productivity is all about producing increasing levels of output for decreasing levels of input or variations of those. And it counts over time. I think, across the New Zealand economy, we've seen ourselves slip down the productivity rate of gain relative to others. So, we were one of the richest countries in the world in the 50s and 60s, and now we're languishing and in some respects trying to re-find ourselves with a very difficult economy at the moment. I think all the data shows that productivity in the agricultural sector has led in most of New Zealand, and that's had to occur because we're an export-based industry and we're exposed to the international economy, and unless we remain competitive, we're just not going to be able to sustain our industries. And so through my career, if I just think of a very simple metric, milk solids production per cow, when I first came out of university, I think 250, 280 milk solids a cow was quite good productivity as one simple measure. And, today on my particular farm, 480, 500 milk solids a cow without particularly high levels of inputs. So if we were running a farm system with that 280 milk solids a cow, we'd have been broke a number of years ago. So as we look forward, I think the sector has made many of the obvious and perhaps tangible productivity gains: rotational grazing, electric fencing, use of breeding and genetics, and we need to continue all of those things, but add on other layers of opportunity that are available to us. So if I think about productivity, I think about land use change. That's a ability to step change what I'm doing. Might be moving from dairy to kiwi fruit. It might be moving from green kiwi fruit to SunGold. I think about, the capital that I'm deploying on my farm. It might be planting an orchard and new planting, more intense planting systems, which is going to grow output. It might be a new cow shed that improves my labour productivity and allows me to milk more cows. The equivalent technology of today to the electric fence is now the new cow collars with GIS implementation. We need to think about management systems. So this is not all about necessarily science or things. We can get productivity from better management systems. So back in my day, it was rotational grazing and feed budgeting. Today, it's more about perhaps directing inputs into, their use in this exact specific circumstances that I'm going to get the best output. So timing, amount, application, location, etc. It's also about kind of system adoption. So, once a day milking is a great option of one form of productivity. So it's for me, productivity is all about investing in productivity, is all about ensuring that I've got a profitable business today, but I also ensure I'm laying the groundwork to ensure I've got a profitable farm system in 5, 10, 15 years' time, and that I'm going to be able to be competitive with that international market, which is where we're selling most of our product. So year-on-year gain, but using a different mix of tools, perhaps in the 2020s, than what we would have used in the 1990s, quite different.
Yep. Thank you, Andrew. Mike, I guess can you add anything to that? I guess in particular from the scientific perspective, given your role with Ravensdown, it'd be interesting to hear your views on New Zealand's productivity issue and the approach in New Zealand agriculture.
Sure, Richard. So I think the thing that we miss with productivity is an explicit measure, be it by industry, be it by company, be it at a country level, an explicit measure of productivity. Because if we don't achieve the productivity targets, you simply don't have a future. So first of all, I think the measurement is critical. If I think about our big primary production pasture-based industry, are we where we need to be in terms of animal genetics? I'm not sure we are. Importantly, are we where we need to be in terms of pasture productivity? I think recent work would suggest that we've plateaued in terms of that pasture productivity. And that's a concern going forward because that underpins our competitive position. I think emerging technology, as Andrew referred to, contextualising in terms of the productivity gain specifically, we'll get to that, and also in terms of the farm systems productivity measure. So that's all part of it as well, I think, Richard, being explicit about that. In terms of farm systems, what we often see is component research. So this particular technology offers promise, and no doubt it does, but what's the productivity gain at the farm system level when you put it into the farm system? Often we don't look at that, and the reason is not that it is interested, it's because it's often expensive to do at the farm system level, but that's where the productivity gain is to be achieved or not, really. So that's the productivity one. In terms of the kind of underpinning position for your innovation, for me, it needs to have a very clear basis. The first is a science explanation for the technology. Why does it work the way it does? Having that understanding, having a statistical measure. So is the result repeatable and statistically robust? Thirdly, is there a value proposition for the recipient? And is there a value proposition for those involved in promulgating the technology? So clear about the value proposition. Is it scalable, or does it need to be relegated to the boutique level? And finally, in terms of how we look at some of the area of nutrients, what's the environmental impact of the technology? If it doesn't yield an environmental impact, then should it be part of your investment portfolio? So those are the things, Richard, that I think about in terms of productivity.
That's a positive environmental impact, isn't it, Mike?
Yes, it is, very much. Very much. Producing the same or more with a lower footprint, Richard, so positive impact, indeed.
Yeah. Andrew, as a user of these innovations, both through your own family farming business and MyFarm, how do you think about the adoption of innovations to get the best productivity gains?
Yep. So for me, we operate in a system, and so I'm less interested in using technology to solve individual things. If I've got a problem, I need to find a solution. Of course, you'll use the smartest and most cost-effective way to solve that. But really, I think you farm in a system. In a dairy perspective, we've got our system 1 through to 5, which is about thinking about the use of outside feed relative to our farming enterprise. So it's innovation is more interesting to me if it supports the overall operation of that system. So from my perspective, it's not so important which system I choose. It's whichever system that I do choose, I then perform very well for that system. So innovation and technology has got to fit within that format. It's got to be relevant to me. It's got to advance the overall farm and business goals. So I'm looking for benefits plus, not just solving a problem, but how it contributes to the overall efficiency and effectiveness of the farm. So the cows, the feed, the people in particular, how do they all come together to make the boat go faster?
Your use of collars in particular was quite interesting in the chat we had earlier in the week. The spillover benefits from being able to monitor kind of animal health and animal movement. Do you want to, go into a bit more detail on that in terms of the whole of system impact?
Yeah. So look, like any business, and taking the dairy farm, we're benefiting from perhaps once in my career, two very good milk price seasons in a row. This year's not done yet, but looking positive. plus some nice returns from being a Fonterra shareholder. So, one could be sit on one's laurels, I guess, and sit back and enjoy the situation. But as we know, as farmers, supply and demand, things change, and we've got these longer term needs. So now's the time to kind of double down on how can I improve things. So I'm looking to improve productivity, improve profits, lift and the long-term sustainability. So that's not just the environment, but it's also making sure the jobs are sustainable for the people that work. And we're also looking to improve repeatability, get more consistent results, and therefore reduce the risks that apply. So without kind of realising it, on our dairy farm, labour's hard. Good labour's hard to secure, and when you've got good people, you want to keep them. So without really realising it, over the last 10 or 15 years, we've invested heavily in making improvements that make the farm easier to run, and shift focus from day-to-day activities to actually managing and improving the business. So when my manager rang up and says, I've lost a staff member for good reason, and it's hard to find somebody, and I'm just about done here. That's a visceral moment. And so what could we do to make life easier, make the job more attractive, and make the farm system go better? And in that case, for us, collars seemed to cover their cost on the data that we had, but I knew it would make the farm system much more sustainable for my staff. So the first thing collars have done for us, and this is Halter, is given all my team another half hour sleep in the day. So people don't need to go and get the cows. It's the worst job in the world to go and get cows at 4:30 in the morning just to get them into the shed. So we've outsourced that. We're now more precisely doing our break feeding. So we're more precisely allocating feed to cows. It's kind of sometimes hard to allocate benefits just to one thing, but we know without people chasing cows into the shed, we've got a lot less lameness, handful of lameness cases. It appears the system's less stressful on everybody. And, if I go back 10 or 15 years, we were dry cow therapy, the whole herd for somatic cell cow and mastitis management. This year, I think we dry cow therapy six cows. So not all down to Holder, but certainly related. Our in-calf rate, 6 week 6 week submission rate and in-calf rate is through the roof, and we're not using bulls in the system anymore. So that's a great example of probably a technology that started with just managing cows in and out and accurate break fencing, but then is built on as they build out the platform into all of these related technologies. So Holder's become in our case, and in other cases it'll be other technologies, but a really great supporting technology around which we can build, increase past use efficiency, increase production, shift our animal health spend into preventative, not bottom of the cliff, and then have a much better environment for our team and staff. And then we'll talk about it later. We're gathering all this data that we can now use for other things to improve productivity on the farm.
So there's I guess a lot there that wouldn't have been in your original kind of business case or thought process around that initial investment.
An unusual outcome where the benefits probably far exceeded, and this won't be for every farm system, but for our system, the benefits far exceeded the business case.
Mm-hmm. Mike, I want to bring it back to you in relation to the use of data and data collection in modern agriculture, like the GPS located soil test data for predictive modelling. I guess how you see that as a supplier to many of our pastoral and horticulture farmers, and how you see that used in wider farm systems.
Sure, Richard. So we're fortunate in Ravensdown, we have a huge amount of good, robust data. And what we're seeing evident now is the more recent tools allow us to interrogate that data as never before and use those tools to look for patterns, associations, causations, etc. So that you could almost run those models before you visit the farm to give you an indication of what the fertility of the farm may be before you actually physically visit. And that gives an enhanced service position for that farm. Now, you can run those models, use your data, make those predictions, and then when you arrive on farm, of course, you might reasonably expect to check your position. But as you improve your confidence, so much more precise with where the soil fertility is, and consequently, then, Richard, more precise about where you put your fertiliser as a consequence. And so that precision gives you the opportunity for production benefit, and that precision gives you the opportunity of an environmental benefit, which is equally important to us. So huge amount of data, having the tools to interrogate it well and predictively use it to further enhance your service offering to your farmers is where we've landed on that. Great opportunity with these emerging tools. And who knows, in the future, 5, 7, 9 years' time, it'll only get better, it won't get worse, to use that data in a more predictive way.
Yep.
Can I just interject there, Richard? And here you see the convergence of technologies coming together. So one of the things I have out of Halter is a bit of a heat map of where the cows are spending most of their time around the farm. So for every year I can see where are the stock camps. And so if I can combine that information with some of Mike's smart technology, you know, I may be able to reduce my fertiliser bill, but probably I'll just be able to spend it better and get some productivity improvements, but also some lesser environmental implications as well. So great opportunity.
So I guess we've talked a lot about Halter and application to dairy. Do you see, this is one I'm keen to get both your views on, do you see a disparity in approaches to use of data across different farming sectors? And I guess how does the kind of the demography of the farming population help or heed use of data and innovation?
I'm not sure that it's so much about the demographics of the recipient, Richard. I think it's how you work closely with some of the service providers. So, for example, in Ravensdown's case, we'll use our resources in-house to do some of the heavy lifting so that we engage with the farming community. We've got an advanced position. So, and when we do that, we're not sure it's any better or less received depending on the demographics of the user. So I'm not sure it's a demographics issue so much. I think if we harness the skills within those service industries who have got access to good quality data, and even to the point where under a model called the data exchange, you can share some of your data in an agreed way, then if you present that value proposition to the farmer, if it's compelling, I'm not sure demographics is the discriminator. I think it's the value of the proposition, really.
Yeah, you got some older people on this call, and I think being innovative is a state of mind rather than a number. But look, I think we're all aware of very successful family farming businesses where there's a huge knowledge in one or two people's heads, and they can run very, very efficient, effective, profitable farming operations without too many numbers or systems or approaches. But if you're looking to bring on a new generation and you're looking to have a business that's repeatable and perhaps scalable, I am a great believer in the management tradition, which applies to any business, whether it's farming or not. So let's have a plan. What are we trying to achieve, and what are the resources we're going to put in place to achieve that plan? We've obviously got to implement it, so we've got to think about timing and application and execution. We should monitor the outcomes and outputs, and the more we monitor, the more we can potentially fine tune, and then we adjust the business going forward. So for me, data is pretty critical. We need to know our pasture covers. We need to know our flower counts. We need to know our fruit numbers, because then from that we can manage, we can make sensible decisions, and then we can learn and hindsight as we go. And if you have that system, then you can hold people to account, you can learn lessons, and you can strive for improvement. So what data does is enable us to much more fight, and the better the quality data, the better the outcomes. So going back in the day when I first was in Taranaki, Mike, 30% potash super, 400 or 500 kilograms a hectare, probably a pretty good broad brush recommendation for most farmers in Taranaki. Whereas, with much better set of information and perhaps in an environment where there's more variability in soil types, you can get much more precise. These nutrients are expensive. We don't want to use too much of them because that's bad for the pocket and the environment. So as data gets better, we can much more easily make more targeted, more precise decisions. So yeah, it's all these little 0.5%, I think. We're not in a business where we can make 10% gains here and there. It's all the 0.5% that kind of add up to make a difference. And if you do enough of those 0.5%, and say it's a genetics thing, that all compounds over time. So yeah.
Yep. Hey, I'd like to drill down to some specific technologies that are quite topical right now. We've already covered probably a couple of the ones we were going to talk about, but Mike, I wanted to, get your take on the kind of the methane mitigation tech that is, coming to market, and then Andrew, once Mike's done, we'll kind of chat a bit about dairy beef and the genetic potential there.
Sure. So Ravensdown now for some time has been working closely with Lincoln University in respect to methane that's emitted from an effluent pond. As you know, that almost every dairy farmer has an effluent pond, and left to its own devices, the effluent pond will bubble and boil methane. This technology that we've been involved with Lincoln University is to treat that effluent in the effluent pond so it does not produce the methane that it would otherwise have done. And if we're successful in that, and our research indicates somewhere between 95 and 97% reduction in the methane, and then we save methane at a dairy farm level of somewhere between 8 and 9% of its methane footprint. So it's a good start to reduce in absolute terms that methane. And to that end, Fonterra have engaged with Ravensdown to do 100 pilot farms in Southland and 100 pilot farms in the Waikato this production season. And Synlait, for their part, we're doing 50 pilot farms in Canterbury. The objective is to use the technology at that scale to make sure that we do it efficiently and well. and then to take measurements on those treated ponds to make sure that we reduce the methane as we would expect. And so this is a technology that's really one of the first to significantly reduce methane, is scalable, we submit, and is available to all farmers in due course. So great technology, reduces methane in absolute terms, and helps New Zealand's greenhouse gas footprint internationally, and helps the important associations with the customers, Nestle, Danone, and others, who very much want to see New Zealand reduce its carbon footprint of its food products into the future. So ticks all those boxes, Richard, and it's in that sort of rollout phase at the moment.
Yep, fascinating.
Dairy genetics and the sheep and beef industry. There'll be plenty of people out there that love their dairy beef cows, and those dairy beef cows do, a good job in terms of maintaining pasture quality out on the hills. But back on the dairy farm, we've got a bunch of animals that are probably not really living a worthwhile life, and just from a moral or a ethos point of view, how do we change things up to give those animals a worthwhile life and create some productivity and profitability on the way. So yeah, we're already using sex semen and the collars for mating, so we're able to get very good quality genetics for the replacement animals, and it's not much effort really for us to utilize good beef genetics, easy calving beef genetics across the rest of the animals. And yeah, our dairy genetics, I think they produce animals which grow pretty quick as well. So the animal out the end is potentially a high quality, high value animal. We've got a farm system. We were trying to take labour out of it, and then now we're thinking of rearing another 300 or 400 calves. So I haven't quite cracked that. So thinking about the technology and automation that we can use to, make that a doable job, and thinking about whether they're best reared at home or reared on, a partner farm is all part of the mix. But yeah, those animals could be delivered at 100 kilograms into a beef system, could be integrated with collar technology to, precision grazing. They have none of that maternal cost of, all that dry matter. A beef cow, is farmed for a year, produces one calf and less than one calf on average. So we get rid of all of that feed demand. And we're producing an animal where the methane, we talked about methane before, the methane component's already been accounted for in the dairy system. So we're producing meat with a much smaller carbon footprint. So yeah, there's technology systems adjustments that can be made that'll make my business better, and also if I can partner with some sheep and beef farmers, could possibly make their farming systems better. And ultimately, it's a big waste. The way we're not making full use of these surplus dairy animals is a big waste and a big opportunity.
Yep. Thank you both. Now I'm just conscious of time, so we've got 12 minutes left. There are I guess a few questions on Slido which I'd like to turn to now. This none of these have been directed to particular panelists, so I'll try Mike on the first one. So, what innovative approaches can be adopted to enhance pasture management? This appears to be a critical factor in achieving both environmental and financial sustainability.
Sure. So I think Andrew spoke about the use of wearables to assist with pasture management. In addition to that, we have used tools like the rapid pasture meter and similar ones. Probably the thing with pasture management, Richard, is that I think from the stats, if I remember it correctly, around about 30% of farmers actively engaged in pasture management by whatever technology they're most comfortable with, rising plate meat or rapid pasture meat or similar. But there's a significant amount to date that don't do that. I guess the challenge is, can you make I guess that's the nature of that question, Richard, can you make the assessment of the pasture cover a lot less physically demanding than it is now? I'm not sure we're quite there yet, but it's certainly a worthwhile goal, because if we can do that at scale cheaply and quickly, then I think it opens up a world of opportunity for managing your pasture, and indeed managing your demand for nitrogen or not a whole lot better. So I think the challenge is, it's valuable, it does take time and effort, it's a physical process. Can you do that using remote sensing technology? I think we will. I'm not saying we're there yet, but I think that's the opportunity. And if you can do that, then I think a world of gain, particularly in respect to managing those pastures and the demand for nitrogen consequentially.
Yeah. Andrew, anything to add to that one?
Yeah, there's a few satellite images and possibly a range of other technologies, but actually we find the Holter pasture management system works well. We get I get at my fingertips average cover, pre-grazing, post-grazing, growth rates, and comparative data to neighbours. So that gives us terrific information. So yeah, it's hard enough to grow the feed in the first place, and then we've got to efficiently utilise it and get it into milk or meat as efficiently as we can.
Great, thank you. Right, this one's from Joseph. How do we maintain an increase in productivity when an increasing number of food producers are looking to cut costs at the expense of supporting R&D investment into innovative solutions for our growers in New Zealand, e.g. no more Bayer research and development in New Zealand? Mike, do you want to grab this one?
Sure. So if you look at the research community, and there's been some changes recently now to the bioscience economy with some of the CRIs combined, if you just take a moment to walk with, share some of the research that's been done by the bioscience economy people, good scientists, there's a world of opportunity in terms of emerging technology. The key thing is to be focused, pragmatic, and clear about the benefits or otherwise you get from the technology. So I don't feel, Richard, that we don't have emerging technology from our research providers. I don't feel that way. What I think we need to spend more effort on is evaluating those technologies early, and to be really, really focused and pragmatic about which ones we take forward. So I understand the question that some technology providers may or may not be there, but we've certainly got a great backbone of researchers in New Zealand to take us forward. So not feeling too exposed in that respect.
Okay, that's good. Andrew, any views on that one?
Not really.
Okay, cool. Finally, I don't know if you've seen the article this morning. It was on interest.co.nz, and I think it's the basis for this question. So the question is, given the limited returns on sheep and beef farms outlined in Keith Woodford's article, Sheep and Beef Land Price Makes No Economic Sense, what types of innovation should sheep and beef farmers prioritise? So I think the short summary of the article was that even in kind of today's relatively good times for red meat and wool producers, return on capital is kind of in the order of 1%, and the return at that level, the kind of land prices being paid just don't make sense. So I guess that's the context. Keen to get your views on I guess what innovation farmers in these sectors should prioritise.
Maybe I could. Oh, sorry. Go.
No, I was just going to have the initial crack, Mike, and I think one of the issues for the sheep and beef sector is just to kind of address the kilograms of production issue. We want to sell our products for as high and higher price point as we can, but you do get to a point where whoever's doing the shopping gets burnt off by the price and goes somewhere else. So long-term productivity and lamb production versus chicken production is a kind of an example. So I think if we can't increase our production, then we've got some limited options, but maybe reasonable options which Mike might be able to suggest. But look, I think there are three off the cuff options that people might consider. One is that dairy beef opportunity where we can harvest more of our grass into a growing animal. I think that is certainly an option. I think the wearable technologies, some of my mates in this building with sheep and beef farms are getting quite staggering increases in stocking rate and productivity with some wearable. I think the wearables do translate across into growing animals, particularly beef. And then the third one, which may or may not be popular, but we do need to consider the productivity of our land and whether we can make profit from it. So there is nothing wrong with planting, the worst back paddocks and putting some trees on there for future harvest. So yeah, there's three opportunities off the cuff and some system changing improvements.
Yes, that's interesting, Andrew. We hadn't conferred, but I land in similar spots. So if I picture in my head a hill country farm, Wairarapa, Hawke's Bay, Gisborne, and King Country, whatever, picture that. Immediately, there's huge variability, and it may well be that some of the steeper, lower producing parts of that farm might be sensibly planted in carbon sequestering trees or vegetation with little aggregate impact on farm pasture production. And things like variable rate fertilizer, for example, we're a whole lot smarter now than when I started in 1981 about where you put the fertilizer. And so some of it may be in planted, some of it we can be very smart about variable rate phosphorus and sulfur and even variable rate nitrogen. So it'll be a mosaic perhaps of what the farm looks like, some trees, some pasture that formerly we hadn't considered. So what I think Keith Woodford was talking about is the economic case of sustainability. I'll park that because he's commented on that. What I think is there's opportunities for variable rate fertilizer like never before, and planting trees in a managed right tree, right place type landscape that we haven't perhaps looked at before, as well as Andrew said, integration with what the dairy industry may be able to offer the sheep and beef farmers. So some opportunities there, Richard. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Well, we're almost out of time, so I'll just close. Ngā mihi nui. Thank you to our panellists and for everyone's questions. Key takeouts for me were we need to ensure that science underlines the innovation. We need to think about how to leverage an innovation across the whole farming system. And finally, measurement is critical. We need to have repeatable, statistically robust analysis that provide value proposition for farmers. If you want to find out more, please come through to Andrew, Mike, or myself. You'll be able to find each of us on LinkedIn or my details on the Westpac Agribusiness website. We'll be posting this video up on our Smarts channel if you want to watch again or share with colleagues. It will also be sent out to those who registered for the webinar. We do have a short survey which will appear on the right of your screen. Please rate the session and feel free to provide any feedback. Ka kite anō, see you next time.